The Miami Dolphins are staring down a gut-punch rebuild disguised as an open winning window, and our cap hell is finally leaking right onto the field. We're breaking down the immediate steps today, running from a desperate flyer on a former 800-yard wideout trying to crawl his way back into the league, straight into the make-or-break reality crashing down on Malik Willis' shoulders. But the real reason you clicked is this massive defensive blueprint on the edge. We're tracking a legitimate push to sign a mercenary veteran who just locked in a top 20 PFF pass rush grade last season. Firstly, can I ask for your help? Just leave a like. So many of you watch us daily and forget that thumbs up. It's a humble way to support and helps more than you know. Thanks a lot. One name's starting to bubble up in the receiver market. It's a guy Miami fans already know, and his story in the league clearly ain't over yet. Wide receiver is easily one of the most desperate, screaming needs on this Miami Dolphins roster. Two of our absolute biggest weapons are gone, not in the building. Tyreek Hill, the former All-Pro, he was cut loose after taking that serious knee dislocation that wiped out the bulk of his 2025 season. And Jalen Waddle shipped off to the Denver Broncos in a massive trade. That leaves a crater on the depth chart that the front office hasn't even come close to filling. Losing Tyreek to a knee dislocation isn't just bad luck, it's a massive depreciation of our primary offensive asset. And shipping off Waddle, you just traded away your scheme identity and replaced it with dead money and question marks. Sure, Miami went out and grabbed Tutu Atwell and Jalen Tolbert in free agency. They even burned 2 third-round picks in the 2026 draft on more receivers. But here's the harsh truth. This group is totally missing a guy who's actually put up sustained, proven numbers in the NFL. That's why Chase Claypool's name is suddenly drawing heat. He's a former Dolphin, and he's out there clawing to get a roster spot and wake up a career that's been dead in the dirt since 2023. Claypool isn't just sitting on his couch waiting for the phone to ring. The veteran receiver actually showed up at the Green Bay Packers rookie camp. He's actively trying to force his way into a contract and get his name back on a professional 53-man roster. You've got to look at the desperation here. A former Day 2 draft pick running routes with rookies just shows you how fast the market corrects when the film goes bad. Let's rewind. Miami originally brought Claypool here back in the 2025 season. They gave up a 6th-round pick to pull him away from Chicago. When you look at his whole career, you see why they took the shot. He came into this league looking like a legit star. He dropped 9 receiving touchdowns as a rookie. He cleared 800 receiving yards in both of his first 2 seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's the exact production that convinced the Bears to throw a 2nd-round pick at him from Pittsburgh, a massive price tag that ended up looking completely ridiculous. I remember when the Bears made that trade. Everyone with a calculator knew they got fleeced. You don't give up premium Day 2 draft capital for a depreciating asset. That's just terrible roster management. In Chicago, Claypool managed to get on the field for exactly 10 games before they dumped him down to South Florida. And his time with us in Miami, it didn't give anybody hope. He played 9 games, caught 4 passes, and gave us 26 measly yards. He eventually signed with the Buffalo Bills in free agency, but a brutal training camp injury killed that chance, even though reports were saying he looked solid right before he got hurt. 4 catches, 26 yards. We gave up draft capital for practice squad production. It was a bust of a transaction, point blank. Because of almost all of his real, actual production happened in his first 2 years, Claypool's career earnings are sitting right around $8 million. That's pocket change compared to what he was projected to make when he burst onto the scene. If he can actually claw his way back into the league, that number goes up. $8 million in career earnings is absolute pennies for a guy who flashed that kind of rookie tape. He left tens of millions on the table because he couldn't put the mental side of the game together on his rookie deal. For the Dolphins, the logic here is dead simple. If Claypool doesn't walk out of Green Bay with a deal, Miami is a completely realistic option for him. Nobody's guaranteeing he's ever going to play like he did in Pittsburgh, but if he walks through those doors, he's instantly the only guy in our receiver room who's ever posted an 800-yard season in the NFL. That's a massive fact for a depth chart that's completely broke when it comes to real experience. We're actually talking about bringing back a statistical ghost because he's somehow our most experienced option. That right there is the ultimate indictment of how this front office has handled our cap size. All this talk about who's catching passes doesn't mean a damn thing if we don't have our house in order under center. On the offensive side of the ball, a fresh projection just dropped that paints a very real, very terrifying picture of what our future skill positions are actually going to look like, and it all hinges on one guy. Dolphins predicted to add Ohio State star in a move that would shape Malik Willis's future. A franchise's direction runs straight through Willis. Going into this 2026 season, the Miami Dolphins are actually carrying a real cautious sense of hope. And let's be dead honest, that hope runs straight through one single guy, Malik Willis. This organization has burned years looking for a quarterback they can actually build a franchise around. Right now, Willis is carrying the total weight of that massive unresolved mess on his shoulders. I've watched this team cycle through quarterbacks like disposable razors. Willis has the physical traits, but if he can't process an NFL defense pre-snap, we're right back to burning cap space on backups. The long-term plan in Miami is completely locked to how Willis actually plays out there on the turf. If he shows the front office he's got what they've been desperate for, building a real competitive roster around him is the only way forward. But if he totally bombs and can't give them those answers, the choices coming next are going to be brutal, and they're going to blow up this whole roster all over again. This is the inflection point. No more rookie-scale safety nets. If Willis is a bust, we're looking at another massive teardown, complete with dead cap hits and fired coaches. Let's pretend Willis actually locks down the quarterback job. The Dolphins are still going to desperately need to put real weapons around him. ESPN just dropped a massive projection saying Miami is going to fix that void in the 2027 NFL Draft. They've got us taking Jeremiah Smith, that absolutely highly rated wide receiver out of Ohio State. Jordan Reid over at ESPN wrote this exact breakdown. Cornerback would be a consideration if the Dolphins picked this high, but getting a truly elite receiver would be hard to pass up, especially with the Dolphins moving on from Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle this offseason. Smith has a great blend of size and speed. He's a swift vertical mover who eats up coverages in a hurry while showing exceptional strength at the catch point. 8 of Smith's 12 receiving touchdowns last season came in the red zone, as he's an upper echelon player in that area. But he can also make big plays down the field. Andre Johnson and Julio Jones come to mind as easy NFL comparisons. Andre Johnson and Julio Jones comps? That's high-end draft capital talk. 8 red zone touchdowns means he actually knows how to convert targets into 6 points, something the scheme hasn't figured out since the roster purge. Everyone's broadly projecting Smith to be the absolute first non-quarterback off the board in the 2027 NFL Draft. And when you look at how stacked that year's quarterback class is, people are already calling it generational. He could legitimately sit right at the very top of the board. It all comes down to how these front offices grade out the whole field. But let's be real, picking that high is not a spot Miami actually wants to be in. The Dolphins' actual chances of grabbing a generational talent like Smith, that's going to depend 100% on if this 2026 season goes exactly to the plan or if it totally blows up in our faces. So the offense is basically a massive roll of the dice. But if you think that's bad, jumping over to the defensive side of the ball reveals a roster hole so deep that analysts out there are flat out saying Miami can't afford to ignore it without kissing the season goodbye. Going into last season, Miami actually looked like they had some real terrifying depth on the defensive front. We're talking Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Matthew Judon, and Chop Robinson, who was coming off a really hot stretch to finish up his rookie year. It gave everybody the illusion that we had a totally stacked veteran group, but reality hit us like a freight train. Phillips got shipped out before the trade deadline, Judon was cut loose right in the middle of the season, and Chubb, he got dumped strictly to get us out of cap hell. What was supposed to be the anchor of this team turned into the most embarrassing liability on the entire roster. That pass rush liquidation was brutal on the balance sheet. Trading Phillips and dumping Chubb to clear cap space completely neutralized our pressure rate. You don't survive in the AFC if you can't hit the quarterback, and we practically gave away all our heavy hitters. The Dolphins tried to stop the bleeding by using a 4th-round pick on Trey Moore and a 7th-rounder on Max Llewellyn to throw some bodies at the edge. But let's be real, neither of those guys comes with any guarantee they're going to do a single thing for us in 2026. That massive gap between what we desperately need right now and the actual guys standing on the sideline has every analyst out there screaming for us to sign a veteran. Tyler DeSena over at Dolphins on SI just threw out a list of 3 free agents Miami needs to target after that June 1st deadline passes. And right there on the list, former #1 overall pick Jadeveon Clowney. Over his 12 NFL seasons, Clowney's racked up 66.5 sacks and stacked up over $100 million in career earnings, straight from the Spotrac data. Over $100 million in career earnings. The guy operates as a pure mercenary, jumping from team to maximize his guaranteed cash. But the tape shows he still shuts down the run. The math makes sense on a 1-year rental. Here's exactly what DeSena said about it. Jadeveon Clowney is a former 1st overall pick, a true run game specialist. He has signed mercenary deals in the last few free agent cycles, likely to avoid the bulk of offseason workouts. Clowney is more of a 3-4 outside linebacker as compared to the defensive end in Pharrell, but with Miami head coach Jeff Hafley saying he wants to operate in multiple fronts, the role likely would be similar. If Miami wants a rotational player who can fill a run game specific role while their young players grow, it may be worth reaching out to the 32-year-old who has played at least 370 defensive snaps in the last 11 seasons. Bringing Clowney in wouldn't be a long-term fix, but he's an actual legitimate starting caliber player at a spot where we're bleeding bad. Look at his latest run with the Dallas Cowboys. Pro Football Focus graded him out as a top 20 edge rusher, handing him above average marks knocking around the pass block and stuffing the run. If Sullivan doesn't execute a veteran signing here, this defensive line is statistically doomed. Drop a like if you want more raw, no-fluff financial breakdowns of this roster. Subscribe to the channel, and let's see if this front office actually pulls the trigger.